Welcome to this week's podcast interview. I've brought on Tami McVay. Tami, welcome.
Thank you so much.
And
Great to be here.
it's such a small world. We're both located here in the Denver metro area, but we connected online, which I love those kind of connections.
Yeah, that's what I love too. It just pulls people from so many different circles together.
Give the listeners a little background. Where do you live and what do you do?
So I live in Parker, Colorado. It's on the south end of the Denver area, and I'm a business and lifestyle strategist. And so I help people tap into a more powerful side to themselves, and so that way they can build a business and life that excites them. And I like to do that through masterminds and adventure retreats.
Well, and what I love most about your story, you come from the Marines.
Yes. I went to the Marine Corps right out of high school. And when you're young, you kind of take that for granted. You just do what you do. But now that I'm older, I recognize how much that shaped me for who I am, my confidence, and the different things I've accomplished in my life have come from that. So definitely grateful.
And maybe could you give a little more description how you went from the Marines and then you worked in corporate and kind of just give a background. What did you do and what all happened in those situations that brought you to today?
Okay, yeah. So in the Marine Corps, my background there was aviation radio repair. So my job was all learning electronics theory, how to repair radios. And when I got out of the Marine Corps, I was really struggling finding work because most companies wanted 5 to 8 years experience, and I'd only been in the Marine Corps for 4 years. And so I was feeling really lost, taking any kind of temp jobs along the way. And I eventually moved to Colorado. And when I did, I got a job through a temp agency working at an engineering firm in their data center. And at the time, I didn't have any computer experience other than doing my resume. But they brought me on. It was supposed to be just for 3 months, but I started picking things up really quickly, and they decided to move their company headquarters out to Denver. And so because of that, they were doing a lot of hiring, and they kept me on, and I ended up being at that company for 20 years.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah. So really long time. I was definitely blessed. It was a great company. I went on to become a software developer. I learned so much about IT and technology, but I was just getting to the point where I felt like I wanted something a little more heart-centered, that I was, stifling some of the best parts of myself. And so that's when I decided to make a change and start my own business.
Well, and that's the big topic I want to cover today is this whole idea of the transition and navigating change, because there are times in everyone's lives when we go from, whether you think of it as one chapter to a next or one life phase to the next, but a lot of people steer clear of change.
Mm-hmm. Well, and when I was in corporate, I struggled with that for a long time because I was having this ache of wanting something new, but I was in a great job, making great money. And anytime I thought about leaving, I just had that tunnel vision of, well, if I leave, I'll just be a software developer somewhere else. So I may as well stay where I am, where I know what to expect. And I have 5 weeks vacation because I was living for my vacations. And so I convinced myself to stay for a really long time. And it wasn't until the last year of my career, I was on one of the most stressful projects of my entire career. I was putting in 16, 18-hour days, and I had 4 friends die in that same year. And I rolled out that project, and I just thought, that's enough. Like, I just wanted something different. And so I just took the leap. In hindsight, I probably wouldn't do it to that extreme, but it was just the catalyst that I really needed to just go for it.
Well, and I would love to talk about that. So many people, I think that's what our society is kind of based on. People are comfortable and they like the stability of a paycheck and the vacation or whatever, and all the unknowns and uncertainty of going out on their own or doing something they're passionate about hold them back. So now that you've done it, what advice would you give to somebody who's considering it or on the fence or just wanting change?
I think one of the biggest factors has been networking. And when I was in corporate, because I wasn't job hunting, I wasn't working on building my network and connecting with other people because that's how I looked at it. I looked at it as job hunting. And so my biggest suggestion would be to try to meet as many people as you possibly can. I mean, now with, Facebook and social media, LinkedIn, there's all different ways to connect with people. And you can simply say like, hey, it looks like you're up to some really great things. I'd love to connect with you. And you start to see what's actually out there, and you see all these different ways that people are living and creating businesses and lives that excite them. And you can start to explore that, because I found that I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I felt like if I were going to do this, I needed to know everything, and I let that hold me back for a long time. But I think if I had been having these conversations with people much sooner, it would have gotten me more excited. I would have been able to learn a lot more before I actually took that risk.
Well, and I remember when I used to work in corporate, it was always wait until all your ducks are in a row. In this world, your ducks are never all going to be in a row. It's kind of like, well, if you wait until you're ready to have a baby, you'll probably never have a baby, right? If you wait until blank, you're never going to do it.
That's so true. And I especially think like if you are in corporate and you're at a certain level, like a manager, director level, or just a higher level professional, then it's really easy to just stay in that comfort zone with the financial aspects. And you're also that, project manager, you're that planner kind of person if you get to that level in your career. And so it's really easy to stay stuck in that place of wanting everything lined up. And that's one thing that's really changed with me leaving, is that perspective of getting more uncomfortable with the unknown. Like, it actually excites me to think like, wow, what's ahead? Or, really trying to make decisions that guide me to where I want to go, instead of letting life happen to me. Because I know in corporate, like, I was letting life happen to me.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I wanted to ask. Of course, you now have hindsight 2020, but since you've been through it and have the experience, the things you worried about, the things that you feared the most, did they happen?
No. And what was really funny is when I kept debating about this, and I was getting myself just all worked up about it, like I was adding all this extra stress, just simply whether or not I should leave. And I finally sat down and I ran the numbers, like exactly how much money do I need? Because when you have a good salary, you're throwing away money here and there. You're getting massages, like all these things to help make you feel better because you're not really happy. And once you realize like, okay, if I'm doing something I really like, I can cut out some of that stuff. And so I didn't need as much money as I thought I did. But once I sat down and figured out all those numbers, then it just gave me something to shoot for. Like, okay, well, how long can I make it if I have this much in savings or investments? And it was getting clear on that really helped me, instead of just assuming I needed to make the exact same salary that I was at. And to think that you're going to do that right as you like leave and start your own business, it's, you're almost setting yourself up for failure for that. And then I was talking to one of my best friends, and I was talking to her about the pros and cons and this and that. And also she goes, Tami, what's the worst that happens? You get another IT job. And all of a sudden, like, duh, like for some reason that never even occurred to me. It was like an all or nothing. Like, I'm walking away from this great career and taking this huge risk, but I didn't realize like, hey, if it doesn't quite go the way I want, I can always, get another job.
And how long have you been out on your own?
4.5 years now.
Oh, wow. And so when you asked yourself, what is the worst case scenario? Because I did the exact same thing to myself, because there's so much fear and instability. And then if you listen to people's judgments and opinions, you're crazy to leave. But that's what I asked. I said, what is the worst case scenario? And my worst case is I get another job. But now being out on my own, and the freedom, the schedule, and the creativity, and the thought of getting another job is not an option for me.
Yeah. Well, and I realized too that for a long time, probably about the first 2 years of my business, because I had that thought, it was almost like I had one foot out the door, like, 'cause I wasn't totally committed, because there was always that, well, I could get another job. And anytime I'd have like rough days as an entrepreneur, I'd be like, oh, maybe I should get a job. And so I kept letting myself go there mentally. And it wasn't until all of a sudden I just like burned all the bridges, as they say. I wrote down everything about corporate that I loved, that I was grateful for, all the things that were no longer serving me and the reasons why I left. and I burned it. And there was
Mm.
something incredibly freeing by that little ritual. Just like, all right, like, so now it doesn't even matter so much what my business is, as long as I have that freedom. And like you said, it just brings out that creativity and that really great sides to myself that I wasn't exercising in corporate.
Well, and what you said there was that when you finally committed, and on your website, you use these three words often. So to have courage, confidence, and commitment. So maybe we could touch on those.
Yeah. So the commitment, like, even now in my business, when I decide I want to like launch something new or I want to go a different direction, now it's like I reminded myself all these things that I learned in the Marine Corps. And so it's like, okay, well, let me decide and go all in. And that doesn't mean I can't adjust. I go all in for 3-6 months and then I can still adjust. You always have these different options. But if you're kind of working on all these options at once, you're not really making progress anywhere, whether that's your health, whether that's your relationship, whether that's your career or your own business. Like, if you're just kind of dabbling in all these different things, you're never going to get the results you want. And so even though you may be afraid and you have some fears or doubts come up, if you commit and go all in on something, then you can learn from that and then decide, like, okay, is this still working for me? Okay, keep going. And if it's not, well, then I can adjust. And so that's been just really freeing in a lot of areas in my life. And when I work with people, I really make it a point to help them look at how they're spreading themselves way too thin. With the courage, as you know, like starting your own business, it's really intimidating and you have these doubts and you really have to tap into this other side to yourself and really bring forward that courage. I mean, I think for a long time, when I would think of courage, being in the military, I would think of these like combat veterans and the things they were doing. And so I kept downplaying all the different ways I was bringing up courage in my own life. And so, from endurance sports or starting my own business or deciding to do adventure retreats, like each time I have to tap into this courage to help push through all those doubts. And then once I start to see those results, then that's where it builds the confidence. And even as I'm branching out and I'm doing other things and I have the self-doubts come up, at the core of it, like, I know who I am. I know what I'm capable of. I know the different ways I've had success in my life. And so I can keep drawing on that confidence as I'm working on building confidence in other areas.
Well, and I think the key in all this, so listeners know, you don't just wake up and you have it all figured out. It's daily, consistent practices and action and rituals. And yeah, because there are days when you have the fear and the doubt, those still come, right?
Absolutely. And I think for a while in my business, I was letting myself get consumed by that. Like, if things weren't really going the way I'd want, then I'd sit there and just feel like, oh, that's when I kept thinking, should I get another job? But once I started to get more structured with my routine and creating those places that even if I have a rough day, I can rebound pretty quickly. And by having those routines is really helpful. And actually just taking action, like, that will snap you out of it really quickly, whether it's just having a conversation with somebody, doing a little networking, just kind of reminding you why you're passionate about what it is that you believe in. And then I also really make it a point to remind myself of what my vision is and what I'm driving for. And so then that way it pulls me back out of my own head and gets it back into, like, okay, this is my purpose. And if you let that pull you instead, it's much easier.
Right, the push versus pull. Gosh, it just left me, but I wanted to ask you a question. So do you have a morning routine or ritual? What are your go-tos to keep you consistent and on task?
So every morning I do gratitude. I write 10 things I'm grateful for. And that just, sets you in that positive mindset to begin with. I meditate, and that one, I've been pretty good about making it a habit. I want to get to the point where I actually meditate for a longer length of time, because there's so many scientific benefits behind it. like I said, I started keeping my mission, my vision, my values at the forefront, because then it just, every morning, it just kind of excites me again for my day and keeps me going. So those are just some fundamental like mindset things that I do. And then I also make it a point to read or learn every day for like 30 to 60 minutes. And I do it with intention. So I'm not just like pulling in all this noise from all these different books. Like I'm really, if there's a particular area that I'm trying to improve on, I make it a point to listen to that, or something that I feel that I could really help my clients because something keeps coming up. I just try to deepen my knowledge there. And then I connect with 10 people every day in some capacity.
So what does that mean? Just texting hello, or?
It can be a variety of things. It can be, meeting for coffee. It could be, having a Zoom call, or just like dropping them an email or a text like, hey, I'm thinking about you, what's going on? Just kind of keeping that lines of communication open, staying at the forefront of people, and then truly showing that I care. I know in the online space, like a lot of people will just like add people, but I really try to get to know my different connections. Because that's where the real value is.
Awesome. So I want to ask you, who are your mentors, or the people that you go to when you're in a funk or you just want to be inspired?
So I have a few. One is a Marine Corps friend of mine. He retired after 25 years. He was with the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So he's very savvy, driven into psychology and leadership. And so he helps bring me back to that Marine Corps side of me, so I keep driving through for the things I want. So that's helpful when I'm having a rough day. And then I have Danelle Delgado. She is an online business coach as well. And I started working with her. I went to her and I said, I want a coach that gets to know me, because I've had great coaches, but I just didn't feel like they really understood me. And so by sticking with her for a full year, we really were able to accomplish that. So that's been beneficial. And then I also work with Todd Herman from 90 Day Year. He's incredible. He is a high performance coach. He started out with professional athletes and Olympians, working on mindset. And then he started to realize how much that transferred to entrepreneurs. And so he's just very direct, and he has this knack for taking something complex and simplifying it so much that it just really resonates with me. So I like having both that male female balance in my world.
Yes, I totally agree. I myself, I think it's known that most coaches have coaches, and even Tony Robbins says that he is a coach, because you always want to be challenged and taken to the next level, and the outside perspective is beneficial.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing, is like, you only know what you know. And so even if you're just working with one coach, that you still are going to ask those questions based on your own knowledge. But the coach is helpful because they see things that you can't and get you out of your own way. But by having multiple coaches, they may see different things in you. So it's definitely helpful too.
Awesome. I'd love to wrap up this interview with a few rapid fire questions for you.
Uh-oh. Okay.
What is a favorite quote or motto that you live by?
It's by Marcelo Garcia. I believe that's his name. And it's, if they study what I'm doing, it brings them into my game, and no one can beat me at my game. And that was one that I really used to help push through self-doubt.
I've actually never heard that one. I love it. What is a book you're currently reading or highly recommend?
I just finished Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And of all the books I read last year, it was my absolute favorite. And it's about digging into the brain and this psychology of why things work, and how to really break habits that you want to get through.
What's one takeaway then? How do you break a bad habit, or how do you rewire?
Well, he talks a lot about the actual how our body's made up of all these different proteins, and just by taking care of yourself and really nurturing that aspect of your brain, your physical side, that you switch those patterns and you start to create those new patterns.
Interesting. What is next on your bucket list?
Oh, on a personal level, I really want to go to Croatia. Like that's just the destination that keeps calling to me. It's definitely in if not this year, then next year.
Awesome. What about it do you think?
The water is just absolutely stunning. I've heard the people are amazing, and just having like the castle of Dubrovnik right on the coast, and it's really reasonable as far as the rest of Europe goes, price wise too. So it's just a really great time to go see someplace so beautiful.
Awesome. Final question for you. What advice would you give your younger self?
I would really suggest taking risks much earlier. Like I really wish I had networked much more in my career because I know I would have made this change much sooner.
So don't wait. Start now.
Don't, yeah, that's for sure.
Awesome. Tami, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun.